Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for another Cook with OC program today. Before we begin today's webinar, Osteoporosis Canada acknowledges the land that our offices, located in Toronto, are on, is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. My name is Tracie Napoli, Director of Fund Development in MARCOM at Osteoporosis Canada, and I will be your host for today. Thank you to thinkbeef.ca for their partnership with this cooking demo webinar. This cooking demo will provide general information about cooking and food knowledge. It is not intended as individualized health or nutrition advice. If you have questions about nutrition, consult a physician or registered dietitian. Now, during the webinar, if you have a question or a comment, you can click the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen and enter it there. We will do our best to answer as many questions as we can during the webinar within the time available. Nutrition is a key component for strengthening and maintaining healthy bones, as well as in the prevention and management of osteoporosis. Osteoporosis Canada works to provide strategies, new ideas, and develop recipes to help you get the bone-building nutrients needed for bone health. So when you're on vacation, or maybe a staycation, or just are at home, think outside the recipe box when preparing meals, as it allows you to make personal choices and ensure you are getting enough calcium and protein daily. So switch things up. Sandwiches, wraps, do-it-yourself meal kits, prepared overnight oats and salads with the right ingredients are simple to prepare, affordable, delicious, and a great way to use what you have on hand and are perfect to pack up for a road trip. Eat a variety of healthy foods each day, which includes fresh fruits and vegetables, protein, whole grains, and foods that are calcium rich like yogurt, cheese, legumes, broccoli, bok choy, and almonds. Osteoporosis Canada recommends including protein in your diet to benefit muscle and bone health at every meal. Some examples are beef, eggs, fish, poultry, pork, tofu, legumes, nuts, milk, yogurt, and cheese. Now, one of the main ingredients in today's recipe is beef. And beef has many essential nutrients packed into each small serving and provides nutrients that are difficult to get from other foods like iron, zinc, and vitamin B12. So let's get started. Today's featured recipe is Grilled Steak Muffuletta Sandwich with 37 grams of protein and 400 milligrams of calcium per serving. Now you can find today's featured recipe along with other recipes by visiting osteoporosis.ca/recipes. I will also put the link in the chat. It's now my pleasure to welcome Emily Richards, a professional home economist, freelance food writer, chef, and she's the author and co-author of 10 cookbooks. Emily also writes and develops recipes for print and online publications that include everyday cooking and healthy eating. And she can be found on TV, radio, and webcasts, just like this one. So please welcome Emily.
Hello, thank you, Tracie.
There you are, Emily. We're outside
I'm
today.
here.
Surprise everyone.
We are. It's a gorgeous day out. There's a bit of a breeze, but we're grilling. So I thought, let's be outside, get some extra vitamin D by being outside. And we are going to be making a delicious sandwich and talking about lots of great things and other fun things too, I think too, Tracie, right?
Absolutely. So as always, we're going to do an apron giveaway, just like Emily's wearing. We've got our unbreakable apron. So if you have to still be on the webinar at the end, we'll draw a random name and we'll announce the winner at the end. So that way you can cook just like Emily at home. But yeah, today it's fun. It's a different kind of recipe. You want to think outside that recipe box.
Definitely. We definitely want to do that. And what is to say that you can't have fun in the kitchen, but you can have it outside in your backyard. And on days like this, I definitely want to be outside grilling whatever I can. And this recipe has a couple of components of grilling. We're going to grill the vegetables, we're going to grill the beef, and if you want, you can actually grill the whole sandwich. So we're going to work through all of that. We are going to talk a little bit about Canadian beef because that's what we're using. And I know that when you're going to the grocery store, kind of looking through things, maybe you shop with a grocery list, which I highly recommend. But I like recommending that you kind of take a peek at your flyers, your local flyers, because that's really where you're going to get the benefit of what's on sale and what you can meal plan with. And in the summertime, you'll notice there's a little bit more of kind of grilling beef, for example, steaks and things that you'll find on sale. However, there's usually roasts on sale too, because they're not something that everyone will jump on during the summer, but I want you to because you're gonna save some dollars. So I saved my local flyer here. This is actually from last week, but the eye of round, which is the cut that we're using, was on sale for $3.88. So I like to kind of stock up in my freezer, and then I have it for when I want it. So the cut that we're using is called eye of round fast fry steak. Have you heard of it? I have, and I love it. Fast fry steaks, it's kind of a whole category that you can look in your grocery store and find. They will be eye of round, there will be strip loin, there will be sirloin tip, and they all kind of look a little bit differently. What's great about the eye of round is that it's round. It looks like this. So it cooks pretty evenly. We are going to help it along. It's considered kind of a marinating cut, so it needs a little bit of help in tenderizing. And we're actually doing two things that will help that whole category in tenderizing. We're going to add a marinade, but we're also going to pound the meat or tenderize the meat to kind of break it up a little bit and also give us a little bit more surface area to get that flavor onto it. Okay, so I have my cutting board all set up for me. And I have my knife because I'm going to show you, if you do find that roast on sale, how to slice it, because you can have the versatility of slicing the fast fry steaks yourself and then maybe saving some of the roast for another meal, which I think is always fabulous when you get kind of 2-for-1 type dishes. So I have my meat mallet because we are going to be pounding out the meat, and I have my knife and I have my eye of round. So I'm going to show you what they look like. Now, because I'm outside, I have my my gloves handy because I have the garden hose to run to, or else I'm going to be running inside. So I thought this would be a little bit faster for me to have the gloves handy. So I'm just going to grab I still have it covered here with plastic wrap. So I'm going to take this out so I can show you. These are the eye of round fast fry steaks. Okay, so you usually find about kind of 6 to 8 in a package, which will be anywhere from about 400 to 500 grams, which is perfect for this recipe. So this is how they come. Okay, so they come in their package. They're nice and they're fairly thin, but we're still going to pound them out to get them just a little bit thinner. Okay, so I already have some here, and I'm going to show you how to slice it as well, just because, again, having that versatility, and it's a great skill. You can use this year round. It doesn't just have to be for this recipe. I like making fast fry cutlets. So I'll bread them, for example, and just do a quick little pan fry, and they're a great quick meal. These are also fabulous to roll up and grill if you wanted to. So I just have this is my little roast here. This is about a pound of eye of round. So I'm just kind of going to hold it a little bit. I have a nice sharp knife, and I'm just going to do a nice thin little slice. Okay, kind of back and forth. If you wanted to, if you feel that this is a little too difficult for you, you can actually freeze the roast for a little bit just to kind of solidify it a little, so that when you hold on to it and slice it, you'll get some nice thin slices. Okay, so I'm just going to do a few more here to show you, and then we're going to pound the eye of round fast fry steaks. Now, what I love about this is that if I don't get them exactly the same thickness or thinness, it's okay because we're going to be pounding them. Okay. Oh, and this one, I did a very funny cut here. So what I'm going to do is just kind of keep this together and do another little cut so that I have a few other pieces. What I'm going to do, that's the edge and if there is any kind of thicker pieces of fat, you can always just trim those away and keep working. You can see how lean it is as well. which is really nice. I'm just kind of holding my knife on an angle here to give me a little bit more slicing ability there. This one looks like it wanted to be stuffed. All right, so I'm going to kind of just lay these out and start pounding them. Okay, so if you have a meat mallet with a flat side, which is what I have, that ends up being perfect because it won't kind of break up the meat. We just want to get it out and make a little bit of noise. And what I'm doing is I'm actually pushing the meat out to the sides. I don't know if you can tell as I'm doing that. And then I'm just going to put it into my casserole dish here. Okay, so same thing, I'm just kind of starting from the middle and pushing out. This is a good way to relax yourself in the kitchen. There, I'm going to keep doing these. So it just takes a few minutes, and you can see as I'm doing it that I'm getting kind of that wider surface area on, I think I have two here, yeah, the wider surface area for those little fat fry steaks. I'm losing utensils too. There we go. And I think I have one more here. There we go. I don't want that bowl to fall off though. So that's our first step, getting all those cutlets lovely and ready for our marinade. Okay, so I'm just going to move some of this stuff out of my way so that I can start the marinade. Now, the one thing that you want to do for this recipe is read through it. I'm a big believer of having your recipe right here. It's always here with me. Look through it because you want to know what the ingredients are. You want to have them ready, but you also want to know if there's any make-ahead components. And in this case, there is, because we want to marinate the meat and let it sit in the marinade for a little bit. Okay, so here are those cutlets that I pounded out. So they're ready to go. And I'm going to set those aside because I want to get that marinade going. So the marinade, as I mentioned right from the top, that marinade is going to give us lots of flavor in the beef, but it's also going to help tenderize that beef. So in order to do that, we're going to let it marinate for a couple of hours, or if you wanted to, you could even let it sit overnight. Okay, it just will start to break down the protein a little bit and become super, super tender. And they're already thin, so they don't take a lot of time to cook, which is great. All right, so marinade. I'm going to get my ingredients here. And I called it a marinade and a vinaigrette because if you look at all the components, this would make a lovely salad dressing. And we're kind of using it that way as well. Okay, so I'm going to start off with my garlic. I have a nice large clove of garlic. Why? Because I love garlic and it goes so well in the sandwich. And I'm just going to use a rasp to get a nice fine, almost paste for our marinade. Now, if you don't have a rasp, you could use a garlic press. You could also just mince it really, really fine to get that nice little bit of paste. Now, if you're not a huge raw garlic lover, I will tell you to just cook it a little bit because it will cook on the beef that we're using, but we are using a little bit as more of a vinaigrette in the sandwich itself. Okay, so that's where it might bother you. So you can for sure grate or rasp the garlic and then our beautiful paste. And you can just pop that into the microwave for like 30 seconds just to kind of give it a little bit of a steam. And then that helps take away some of that raw harshness that tends to bother some people. Okay, so you could totally do that. You could also saute it in a little bit of oil if you wanted to. So that's the first part. Then we're going to add some spices, some herbs. I'm going to use some dried oregano. I know it's summertime. Why am I not using fresh herbs? Because I want this to sit in the marinade and it's doing twofold. So I'm not using fresh herbs in this at all. So there goes my dried oregano. I am going to add some salt. If you are reducing your sodium, you could easily reduce this to accommodate that. The salt is there to help provide flavor overall for everything. So particularly our beef. So that's why it's in there, but you can always reduce it by half, or if you'd like, you can take it out, But then make sure once you take the meat off the grill, you give it a nice little sprinkle so it has that nice fresh vibrancy. A little bit of heat, one of my favorite ingredients, just added a little bit of hot pepper flakes in there, okay? And then I'm gonna add my oil and vinegar. So I'm using extra virgin olive oil today. Why? Because I absolutely love that flavor. And it goes kind of with our Italian theme of this sandwich. So if you're wondering what muffaletta is, it's always been a sandwich. And typically it is served with inside different variety of Italian salamis, which are some of my favorite things. We wanted to change it up a bit and kind of a nod to that classic muffaletta, but with Canadian beef, it just brings out that flavor in a different way. And that's where this vinaigrette is coming through. So I'm going to also add some red wine vinegar in there. Okay. So we are going to be using some of this marinade, and I give you the exact amount in the recipe. It's 5 tablespoons. So if you have a tablespoon like this that I'm using, you could use that, but because I'm a home economist, I am going to pull out my tablespoon measure. And what I'm going to do is take my 5 tablespoons and I'm going to keep stirring it as I add it to my beef. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so you're just going to set the rest of this aside because we're going to come back to that. And I'm going to make sure that all these lovely little fast fry steaks get covered in our marinade. Okay, so just kind of give them a little flip. And you'll notice that there's not a ton of marinade in here. They're not soaked in there. They don't need to have a pile of marinade right on top of them. They just need to kind of be coated. They're nice and thin. They'll be coated and the flavor will get in there because we're letting it sit for a couple of hours. Okay, so you're going to cover this and put it in the refrigerator and kind of forget about it for a little bit. If you get the chance, by the way, to go and flip them over, if you happen to be in the refrigerator and you remember that, please do that. That just helps kind of the other side get a little bit more. If you don't want to do it in a casserole dish, you want to do it in a Ziploc bag, you could totally do that too. Seal it, put it in the fridge and kind of forget about it. The one question I get asked about when it comes to marinating these types of steaks, or really any type of steak, is can I freeze it in the marinade? This has a lot of vinegar in it. So the longer it sits, it'll start to break down the protein even more and then almost change the texture of the beef. So I usually recommend the overnight marinade, works beautifully. If you need to freeze it, let's say hey, maybe you got invited to someone's cottage. That's my dream. And you want to bring this as a meal, but you need to freeze it. Just reduce the amount of red wine vinegar, but the oil will be in there to protect everything in the freezer as well. So I would reduce it by about half and then pop it in the freezer, let it thaw in the cooler on the way to the cottage, and then you have a great meal ready for the grill. Okay. So do you see all the versatility of this beef, Tracie, that I'm telling you?
I do. And I think, I mean, that's why we love this recipe, because, you know, you could grill a steak and it's delicious, but why not make something that you can just have on hand? It's great to serve if you have people over, but also, you know, a lot of people aren't hopping on a plane going anywhere. So if you're going to go to the park and have a picnic, if you're going to go to the cottage, like, this is about having different options. You know, a meal does not need to be a main, a side, and a salad. And especially if you are 1 or 2 people, sandwiches are fantastic. I mean, you could even take the components in this and put it in a wrap. And if you choose not to have the bread, you could also make your do-it-yourself little meal kits and make them up in your little reusable containers, pop them in the fridge and pull them out or pack them up and take them with you. So, you know, that's, I think, one of the great things about this. If anyone has any, you know, comments or questions, remember, you can pop them in the Q&A. The one that we did get, and we are coming to it, so I'll just put it out there. A few people were like, what is muffaletta in terms of the spread that we were talking about? So we will talk about that when we get there. But yeah, this is a really great way. And if you don't have a barbecue, right, Emily?
Yes.
You can make this in a skillet, cast iron, at home inside grill, on your
Whatever
balcony
you
if you don't
happen
have
to
a
have.
backyard, you have a little hibachi, whatever it is. You know, this is very versatile.
It is. It totally has that versatility. And I think that's what's great. Sometimes when you see a recipe in its stagnant state, you don't see that because you see the recipe as it's written. So going to a cooking class or talking to someone about what you're making or coming to a webinar like this, you get to kind of find out beyond the recipe and find out a little bit more, not only details, but how else you can use the ingredients that are in the recipe. And already you've kind of heard a bunch of ways that you could use the beef alone. So the other components will kind of play into this really, really nicely. And Tracie had the perfect segue into the muffaletta because we're actually going to make the muffaletta part of the muffaletta sandwich. So overall, it is a nice big Italian sandwich, as I mentioned earlier, with meats and cheeses and such wonderful flavor. There is a component that typically is used within that to give you that muffaletta name, and that is the muffaletta spread or antipasto. Some people will refer to it as a muffaletta antipasto. And I have the example of it right here in this bowl. I'm going to see if I can get it in the camera correctly. There we go. And if you can kind of see there's olives in there, carrots, red pepper, black olives, cauliflower, celery. Sometimes there's onion in it. Guess what? It's pickled vegetables, just a variety of pickled vegetables. So if you make your own pickled vegetables, let's say you pickle carrots, beans, asparagus, chop them up, and you have your own homemade muffaletta. If you buy a pickled vegetable mix, which typically is cauliflower, celery, carrots, sometimes there's olives and red pepper in it, you could chop that up and use it. If you're not an olive fan, that's okay. Olives don't have to be part of this. I know a lot of people just kind of, they're standoffish when it comes to olives. So by all means, you just chop up some of those pickled veg and use them. What does that flavor provide? Those pickled vegetables, it's that little bit of brininess that, because they're in the brine, and saltiness that adds a wonderful overall flavor to the entire sandwich. It's also your vegetables. We have some other vegetables in there too. Don't worry, it's not the only one. So it just adds, oops, Daisy, I lost my, won't be able to get Tracie. There we go. It just adds a really nice flavor. Okay, good. So instead of just spreading muffaletta on it, which don't get me wrong, absolutely wonderful, we're going to add a nice little bit of creaminess to this. And I think it works beautifully with the grilled beef. So we're going to add a little bit of mayonnaise. Okay. And this can be whatever mayonnaise that you happen to have at home. I know there's so many varieties now. Before it just, you could say mayonnaise and that's all there was, but there's light, there's olive oil, there's avocado. So whatever you use at home will work here. We don't need very much. And we're also using some plain yogurt. And you'll see this a lot in a lot of recipes that, let's say egg salad, for example, where typically you used to see just mayonnaise being used. You'll see a lot more yogurt being used in place. I like to say for two reasons. It adds a nice bit of acidity and a really kind of clean taste so that whatever you're stirring it into becomes more obvious. So in this case, the muffaletta. And also gives us a little boost of calcium, don't you think? So that's always fabulous. And in this case, when if you have Greek yogurt that you're using, you also get that little bit of protein in there as well. So I'm just going to give this a little stir. Okay, and you can get this done. You can get all these components ready while the beef is marinating in the refrigerator. Okay, and don't worry, I'm not going to make you stay here for 2 hours and wait for the beef to be fully marinated. I already did some, so we can move quickly. So this comes together. And if you want to just have this in your fridge, by the way, and put it on other sandwiches, it's fabulous. It's just a nice little condiment. If you don't want to make the sandwich, you could just put some of this on your fast fry after you grill the beef and enjoy it like that. It's a nice little topping. Okay, so I'm going to set that aside. We'll come back to it. And now we're going to start grilling. So we have some veggies, and I wanted some color in this sandwich because it's summertime. Not to say you can't make this year round, but it's always nice to have fresh summer vegetables. My peppers are about this big in the garden, so I can't wait till they're about this big. But we have beautiful, if you're in Ontario, we have beautiful greenhouse peppers year round that you can get. And I know some of those local farm stands, their peppers are a little bit bigger than mine. So you may be getting some local peppers wherever you are already. And here is my fast fry eye of round steaks that have been marinating for more than 2 hours, because I did them this morning so that they have lots of flavor. So what you'll notice right away, hopefully with the camera, maybe the sun will change the look of it, is that the beef has changed a little bit of color. It's not kind of that brighter red anymore. It's taken on a more dull color. And that's to show you that it's absorbing the flavor of the marinade. And also that little bit of acidity from the red wine vinegar has changed it, the structure of it, okay? So you can see those nice little bits of oregano on there and the hot pepper flakes. And it's, I should have mentioned, hopefully I did, maybe I didn't. If you're not a big hot pepper flake fan, don't worry, you don't have to use it. It's about 1/4 teaspoon, but it really does add a nice little bit of flavor. It's not like spicy at all, because you can add the spice later. It's really just about having that balance of flavor, okay? So my grill, I couldn't get the camera any closer because it'll melt. I've already had a couple things melt when I'm grilling. I have to figure that one out still. But I have had the grill on heating. And that's kind of important because these are kind of fast fry steaks. So they're not going to take very long. Within about 5 minutes, they're done. So we're going to get our peppers on first. So I'm just going to add a little bit of, I just have a little cooking spray that I'm going to add to my grill. And I'm not seasoning or doing anything to the peppers because fresh peppers on the grill really don't need anything. They're absolutely fabulous. And that little bit of cooking spray will help if you're worried about kind of any sticking. So I'm just going to put these right on the grill. Well, not that one.
This is real live. I was going to say TV. It's not TV, but it's just, you know, it's live when we drop stuff.
I'll save this. I'll save this one for the dogs. I'll just put it
there.
over
You go. There you
they
go.
like peppers. All right. So don't worry. I already grilled some peppers too, because believe it or not, grilling peppers, this is about medium high heat. It's going to take about 10 minutes. What we want is that kind of nice golden burnished skin. It's okay if it gets a little more golden than you expected, because it just builds the flavor in the pepper itself. So I already grilled some. And this is here, I'll hold it in this camera so that you can see what they look like. Okay, so they have that nice kind of golden skin, nice, and they've softened. So you can do this part ahead of time as well. Okay, so let's say you're grilling, you grilled last night, just grill a few extra peppers and then you have them ready. I also love having grilled peppers because you can add them to so many different things, salads, other sandwiches, you can enjoy them on their own. And if they do get a little dark, okay, like these ones have that little bit of a, sorry. They have a little bit of a darker skin. You definitely can peel them. It's totally not necessary though, okay? So those are ready to go. I'm gonna get my steaks on. And hopefully we'll hear a nice sizzle as I do that. There we go. So I'm going to actually grill this with the lid open so that I can keep an eye on them. And also to avoid flare-ups, because I have that little bit of oil in the marinade. I don't want to have any flare-ups happen. I'm going to move these peppers over so I have a little bit more space. There we go. All righty. So now that I have them on the grill, you're going to discard that marinade. You're not going to use it anymore. Okay. You are going to need a plate to put them onto. So I have that over here. And then I'm also going to grab different tongs so that I can flip them. And then we're going to talk about bread. Just don't let me forget about those steaks. Okay. Are there any questions?
I'll keep an eye on them for you.
Are there any questions, Tracie? I'm like chattering.
Actually, yeah, we do have one. So somebody has asked, they have an allergy to vinegar or anything with vinegar. What could they use if they couldn't use that?
Well, then what will happen is you can still use all the other components. And then for that little bit of acidity, you could use something like lemon juice, which will give you a nice fruity flavor, but it still has the acidity to offer up to help kind of break down the protein a little bit so that it tenderizes it, and it will have just a nice fresh lemon flavor as opposed to kind of that heartier red wine vinegar flavor. But it would be quite lovely. I actually do use lemon juice often because I do have friends that red wine vinegar bothers them and other vinegars. So lemon juice is a great substitute for that. And try to use the fresh one as opposed to the bottled one, because it does have a really nice fresh flavor as opposed to like an acidic flavor that kind of hits you a little too hard, especially in a delicate marinade, for example. So hopefully that helps.
That's great.
I'm just going to flip my steaks here.
Okay. While you flip, I'm going to so I think, we've had a couple of questions about people asking if they could use other ingredients if they didn't want to use, either the Muffaletta spread or, switch out the vegetables, etc. Really the key components in this for, getting your calcium and your protein is the steak and is the cheese that's included. If you don't like olives and you don't like, pickled vegetables, that's a personal preference. You don't have to include that. If you don't want to use peppers and you want to use a different vegetable, that's really it. But if you're going to start switching out the cheese, now what I will say about the cheese is, because we did have questions, we talked a little bit about sodium. Once in a while, it's all about balance. If that's good for you, then that's great. Something like this once in a while is a treat, and it's great if you're worried about sodium, because there is, especially with the pickling items like the muffaletta, it's a bit high in sodium. But if you are also wanting to lower it, you could change the type of cheese that you're using, and it's really just paying attention to the amount of calcium and protein. So just remember, when you switch out the main components, that's really the goal. Because if you choose not to have the bread, as delicious as bread is, and as delicious as it would be to sop up all those juices, that's not going to really affect the amount of calcium and protein that you're going to get in this. So just wanted to kind of point that out in terms of substitutions, because Emily, we like variation, we like ease. Like if you don't have peppers, great. You don't have arugula and you want to use spinach or, lettuce, like whatever it is that you want to use, that's great. But just always keep that bone health messaging in mind.
And I think along the lines of, especially this time of year when a lot of things, if you have a garden, they're coming into play, like big time. Hello, zucchini everywhere. This would be a great place to grill zucchini and put it in there. It would add some extra juiciness and flavor. And if you wanted to, you could even brush some of that marinade on the zucchini, because zucchini won't have as much flavor, whoops-a-daisy, as the peppers, but it will definitely be able to give you that added veggie. Now, the other thing that you can do is, if you wanted, just grill the veggies and the beef separately and create a meal on its own. And then top the steaks with some of the provolone, and you can have a really nice kind of gooey version of a parmigiana with the grilled beef. So you can, change it up, which is absolutely fabulous. I'm actually going to take off our beef steaks here because they are done, because they do only take that amount of time. Okay, they're nice and quick, and you will be able to tell because you'll have some lovely little grill marks on there, and they will smell amazing. Okay, so that's what they look like. I'll stick them in here to show you. Okay, so they have those nice grill marks. Now, if you were doing this on a high heat, you'd get even bigger, more intense grill marks. But I like to play it safe, medium high. Especially with older barbecues like mine, where they could have flare-ups. And you're going to know your barbecue. So if you know that you got hot spots on your barbecue, don't put your peppers there because they will kind of flare up and they'll get a little too dark. So we have all of our components ready, except kind of the vehicle that houses all these wonderful ingredients, and that is the bread. So I'm just using a sourdough loaf. Picked it up at the grocery store. It wasn't at a specialty bakery or anything like that. You could use a calabrese loaf if you wanted that. The outside's a little bit crustier, so it's sometimes harder to bite into. Or as I said, you could leave the bread and create your own version of this meal with all these wonderful flavors. But we're going to tuck it into the bread. So I'm going to, with my knife, hopefully cut this in half as best I can. It's so hot out here, everything's falling. I'm just gonna put my back in. There we go. Okay. And then we're going to, if you take a look at this bread, you will see that there is a lot of breadcrumb in there. Okay, so we're actually going to remove most of it. And before you say, what am I going to do with it? I'm going to tell you what you're going to do with it. You're going to take this and throw it in your food processor and make fresh breadcrumbs with it. Okay, and then throw it in the freezer so that next time you make meatballs, if you're making my meatballs, you'll need fresh breadcrumbs. And then you have them at the ready. And it's actually really nice to have fresh breadcrumbs in the freezer because they retain some of the from the freezer, the ice in them. So they add a little bit more moisture to whatever you're adding them to. Okay, so I'm taking definitely most from the top, and then I'm also going to take some from the bottom. Now, this is an inside kid secret, Tracie, that I'm going to share right now. I used to love doing this with any bread, whether my grandmother made it or it was store-bought. I would take out all the stuff inside, much like what I'm doing now, and then make bread balls and then eat those. I don't know why, it just used to be like the best little
thing. Because maybe it's a generational thing, where they're close to the same age, or or it's cultural. I don't know. I used to do the same thing, and this is not a health tip by any stretch of the imagination. This is just like, as you're saying that, I'm like, oh my God, I did the exact same thing when I was a kid, just like and I got in trouble because I wrecked the bread for everybody else. So yum, maybe you can
anytime a baguette was sliced, I'd take out the inside and then make these little bread balls. It was dense bread, and that I don't know, it tasted better, it tasted different. I don't know what it was, but a little food memory to share with everybody. So you can make your own little bread balls at home. All right.
But you know what, I'm going to jump in, Emily. We're going to need, you're going to need the breadcrumbs, because we have other recipes on the website. We do have a meatball and polenta recipe, but we also use breadcrumbs and other things. So make sure you check out our recipe page.
The other thing that you'll want to do, with those breadcrumbs. Oh, can you hear me?
Sorry, Emily, I cut out.
Oh,
a little
okay.
Technical glitch. Yeah, no, I was just saying that we've got, that's why the camera's not on, because we're both earpods, it's all the internet connection. But yes, I mean, it's handy. I use my breadcrumbs all the time. And that way, if I need to bread something or add it to like meatloaf or meatballs or whatever that is.
It's also great for toppings, right? If you mix it with a little bit of butter or oil, sprinkle it on top of some roasted veggies or a mac and cheese, for example, a great little gratin topping with some added cheese to that breadcrumb, and you're golden. So you have a lot of things, a lot of reasons to keep the breadcrumbs. So what I like to do before I get started is actually match up the bread again. It's a silly thing, but it's nice to have the bread match when you put it back together. And then I'm going to bring back in, remember that marinade that we saved? Well, we're bringing it back now. This is going to be our dressing, if you will, our vinaigrette that will help flavor all this wonderful bread. So I just have with my brush, I'm going to go around and make sure that it is well covered on both sides, because we want that flavor to penetrate all the way through the bread. Everything's going to taste great inside, so we want the bread to taste good as well. Okay, I'm just going to pour this in, and then I'll make sure I get it all along the sides as well. Okay, there. Oh, this smells so good. I wish everyone could smell this. I mean, my mouth is watering. Maybe I shouldn't have told you that, but it is. It's so yummy. Then we're going to put our another layer of flavor on, and that is that wonderful muffaletta spread that we made. So we're basically going to take half here and half here, and we're going to just spread that all around. Make sure you get up in the sides there too. Okay, just like so. And if you are planning a little getaway this weekend, you can plan to make this sandwich and share, because it does have the components of make ahead, okay? And we're almost there, so I can tell you when we do that. All right, so here comes our layering. You can really layer it however you want, but I just kind of like to spread particularly the cheese around. So I'm going to put 4 of those provolone slices. I like using provolone. It gets a little bit soft. It gets a little bit melty if you're warming it up, which works out really well. But you could use mozzarella, you could use Asiago, you could use cheddar, whatever cheese you have. If you only have shredded cheese, you can use maybe about half a cup here in this first layer, and then another half a cup later, okay? All right, so I'm going to now add my beef. Okay, so we're gonna layer that on, and it's still a little bit warm. There. So it will melt that provolone just a touch as we go. There we are. And then I'm gonna put the rest of the provolone on. I should take those peppers off, Tracie, before I forget, because they're still on.
Oh my gosh, I didn't remind you. I said I was going to. Sorry. I was,
you know what I'm gonna do?
So
I'm just gonna
with you building the sandwich.
Sorry, I'm gonna move them to the unlit side of the barbecue, and then I don't have to worry. So I didn't want them to start a little fire behind me. So all our steaks are on. Then I'm gonna add the rest of my provolone over top. Whoopsie, just like that. Okay, so far it just looks like a normal sandwich, right? Meat, cheese. Now we have to build a little bit higher. We have to fill kind of this little bit of a cave that we created here. So I'm going to put my peppers on. And I'm just kind of doing this any which way. There's not any rules or regulations to it. And then my arugula, which slowly wilted as I was outside. So it started out as 2 cups, but it wilted a little bit in the sunshine. So this is going to give us a nice peppery bite. You could use, as Tracie mentioned, some spinach. You could use even just some salad greens, mixed greens that you happen to have. If you wanted to change this up a little bit and add another cooked component, I have lots of Swiss chard in the garden. So you could saute up some Swiss chard with garlic and put that in here. That would be absolutely delicious, okay? And you can see it has a little bit more of a height difference now. So I can actually put my top on and press it down. Okay. Now, here's where, remember I told you if you're going away this weekend, you're going to wrap this with plastic wrap. You can even put it in a resealable bag or an airtight container, and it will sit in the fridge for a day or 2 whole. So you can just have it at the ready and then cut it, serve it, enjoy it, put it in the cooler wherever you're going, and it'll be absolutely delicious. Okay. Now, I'm going to put it back on the grill. You don't have to, but I like to warm it up a little bit and toast the bread. So what you can do is just put it on. You don't want the grill on too high. Okay. You want it on kind of low or medium low, just to kind of toast it a little bit. And we are going to flip it. Now, if you can't flip it, not to worry, just toast the one side, because that's where the cheese and the meat are. So that's what's going to warm through really nicely. Okay. So while that's warming up a bit, Tracie, do we have any questions?
We do. We have a couple. I'm going to chance the video.
Okay.
I may see me disappear in a moment. We have a couple of comments and a couple of questions. So we did earlier. So Joan had asked, like, if you don't have a grill, can I pan fry the meat and veggies? And yes, absolutely. You can definitely do that. And Winalda says she loves the recipes, Emily, on the website. So great job. We do our best. So that's super. And let us know if you make something from the website. You can share it on Facebook, Instagram, hashtag, actually forget the hashtag, just tag us so that we can see what you're making. Can't think of the hashtag right now, Cook with OC. And Mary said that she thinks this is a super recipe and she's looking forward to preparing it this week. And Emily, she wanted me to let you know that you mixed up I've been told to get off the video. There we go. Thank you, Arvin. And there is one last question. I hope I didn't cut out, but she said, thanks for all the tips and making it look easy. But Paola would like to know, do you have to, can you peel the peppers when you do them? Do you have to peel them? Can you use them? You didn't peel the peppers.
I didn't peel them, but if you peel them or it's something that you normally do, by all means, you can definitely peel them. I don't peel the peppers. The only time I peel peppers is when I'm doing my peppers for the freezer, which is coming up next month. I do my own kind of roasted peppers, much like you would buy in a jar. So I grill them all and then let them cool a bit and then take the seeds and the skin off. So that's really the only time. But when I'm doing stuff like this, even for grilled vegetable salads or pasta or anything like that, if I'm grilling the peppers, I just leave the skin on. I find that it's a really nice flavor. Now, I should say, if they're really, really dark, I'm not going to say burnt, they're really, really dark and they're kind of bubbling up, you can definitely just kind of give those a little peel off and then use them in the recipe. And I used yellow and red. You could use orange, green, whatever pepper you have. If you want a little bit of spice, you could use a hot pepper. Grilled jalapenos would be fabulous. So yeah, there's lots of options there. So here's my sandwich. It's hot on top. Okay, so that's why you don't have to flip it if you don't want to, because it can be awkward flipping a whole sandwich, right? But I'm just going to take my tongs and kind of just do this. Okay, give it a little flip like that. And it really doesn't need that much time. Like in about a minute, I'm going to take it off and we're going to cut into it. And Tracie's challenged me to eat this sandwich. I'll show you how to cut it and then take a bite. But this is not a neat sandwich. I'm not going to lie to you. It's also not a fork and knife sandwich. It's one of those ones. It's a nice casual, backyard party sandwich, picnic sandwich where you're going to, maybe you have to tuck your napkin into your shirt and you might catch a little bit of that muffaletta drip off to the side. But it really does, to me, it speaks to a lot of the sandwiches I ate as a child. Because as a child, any sandwich, I think, it feels like it's as big as your head. So this one definitely fits the bill in that case, along with all the other benefits of, having, I think it was 37 grams of protein and 400 milligrams of calcium. That's fabulous. Like, that's amazing. That's a great start to your day. And it's just a fabulous sandwich to share with family and friends on the weekend or, during the week. All right, so I'm going to take this off. Just like that. I wouldn't recommend, maybe have a spatula with you. My hands are a little asbestos-like sometimes on days like this. All right, so here's my sandwich. Now, there are some people that will tell you to kind of weigh it down. You don't really have to do that. We filled up the bread enough that it should kind of cover all that cavernous space. So I'm going to cut it in half. Okay. And you can cut it into 4. I like to serve this to 6 people. I think it's a nice serving for 6. If you need to cut it into 8, just hold on to it a little bit tighter because as the wedges get smaller, it gets a little trickier to cut, but you can always stuff everything back in. Okay. So I'll just take, first, look at this. I'm going to show you this view because I think this is fabulous. Look at that.
That looks delicious. It's a very impressive, I will say this, if you are cooking, like you're making this for people, doing this in one big sandwich is very impressive. But let's say you are packing up for a picnic and you don't want to do it that way. Could you get little individual buns and do little, like you would have to take the work, right? You're gonna cut the little buns, make sure you have enough for everything, and then there you go. Just build it the same way.
Definitely. And you can spread it out amongst 8. Get those nice Kaiser buns. You have 8 fast 5 steaks, you have 8 pieces of pepper, and you can kind of go from there. If you want to add a few other things, you can definitely do that. If you want to bulk them up and make them a bit bigger for 6, you could totally do that. You could also pre-cut this, right? So I could cut this. I'll make another cut here. Okay, so I could cut it into my 6 wedges. Whoops, daisy. Okay. And then I can just kind of tuck it all back in here. Oh, my pepper fell out. just tuck that back in, and then wrap it so that it's already cut, so that when you get to where you're going, everyone just kind of pulls out a piece and enjoys, right? So, but you can see the beautiful layers of our steaks there, cooked really nicely. They're nice and juicy, and the flavor of the marinade is going to be in there. And then we have the color from the peppers and the arugula, and the cheese just melted a little bit on the bottom, but inside it's still, you know, definitely there. And we have some of the drip of our muffaletta topping in there too. Am I supposed to literally take a bite of this now, Tracie?
Well, if I were there, I would do it. So I don't know about you,
Okay.
but that looks pretty good. So
Are there any questions
yes.
though first?
Yes, before we, no, you know what? I think we answered everything. And I think
Okay.
really the last bit of messaging is really, you know, sandwiches are great. Little put together meals are great. As long as you get what you're supposed to. I mean, doesn't mean you have to like make a big elaborate dinner all the time or at all. So do what works for you. Just make sure you keep your, you know, your components for calcium and protein. But while you do, I mean, it's a beautiful, that looks very tasty. You don't have to take a big bite, but at least do it for us. Do it for those that we cannot do it. And I'm going to tell you who's winning.
Oh, perfect.
Oh my God, the words are gone. I'm looking at that sandwich and I'm like, oh, it's delicious. So let me just tell you who has won. So we have, let me just see here. Where's the Christina Sulpizio from Etobicoke, Ontario. Congratulations. I will email you. I will get your address. We will ship you this. Be sure to stay on for other webinars in future, or register for other webinars in future, because we always, as long as we can, we will give out. Many people, Emily, are just saying how delicious this all looks. So thank you. And you know, it was fun. We were outside today. We've never done a full one. We've done one a little bit where we were outside. So we're always trying to make things really interesting. So Emily, I'm just going to share my screen, but don't go anywhere.
Okay, I won't. I don't have food in my mouth now, so I can talk. I'm gonna pick up the bits that fell out of the sandwich as I was eating.
And then as you're doing that, well, listen, like I said, here's today's recipe. We have today's recipe. We actually have new recipes. They're not up on the website yet. We are working on them. I'm just going to make sure I turn off my video so I don't cut out. We have a whole bunch, like lots of different recipes. We have lots of cooking demos coming up. So make sure you visit osteoporosis.ca/recipes. And of course, there are lots of other tools and resources available for you. We have the calcium calculator on the website. We have podcasts. You know, they're not long, they're less than 20 minutes. We have members from our scientific advisory council. We have those who have osteoporosis sharing their story. So, you know, make sure you listen to Unbreakable, the OC podcast. You can stream it on your favorite podcast provider, or you can listen directly from the website. We have the Know Your Risk quiz. So if somebody, you know, is that, you know, is not really sure about their bone health and has some questions, it's a great tool for them to take the quiz and learn a little bit more. And of course, this is being recorded. So you will all get, who's ever registered will get a link with the replay, but we also have a lot of other webinars that we've recorded. We just did one on summer activities for those people who have osteoporosis. There's a webinar on protein and bone health. We have all our other cooking demos and cook-alongs that we've done together with Emily over the last couple of years. In addition to, there was a great one, you know, on the connection between diabetes and osteoporosis. So check out the OC Replay webpage. And of course, thank you to our partner, thinkbeef.ca, who helps make this all possible. And to Emily, who always makes everything look delicious and easy and accessible. And, you know, we try to do things that are affordable. So this is super. I do want to let you know that because we do have people from outside of Canada, welcome to all of you, that do attend our webinars. But those of you who live in Canada, you will be receiving in the mail, because of our partnership, a recipe booklet that was done by Canada Beef in partnership with Osteoporosis Canada. So you will be receiving that as well. So we thank our partner. And if you found us on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, make sure you sign up for the national newsletter so that you can get information about upcoming webinars, but also updates on the organization. We have programs, support services. So if you have osteoporosis, if you're a caregiver and you're looking for more information and support, you can also do that. So I think we're good. So, stay connected. I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their summer. We will be having another cooking demo in September. So stay tuned for more info. Emily, thanks again. And everyone for registering and watching. We appreciate you for spending time with us today. Until next time, thank you for joining, and continue to stay well and stay connected, and happy cooking. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.